Africa 24. This program is brought to you by the AFCFTA Secretariat.
Thank you for joining us on Africa 24 English for this new edition of the interview. Today, to discuss about the public and private sectors, challenges and opportunities in the building of regional and continental value chains, we welcome Dorothy Tembo, Deputy Executive Director of the International Trade Center. Mrs. Tembo, welcome to Africa 24.
Thank you very much for having me.
I would like to know something. The second edition of the Biashara Africa offers an engaging platform for ongoing dialogue between the African public and private sectors on the challenges and opportunities of the process of building regional and continental value chains. How can this event help to create investment opportunities on a continental scale?
No, thank you very much. And I think an important question that you raised there, I think many ways. First and foremost, this is not space that you ordinarily find where you are having private sector, public sector, and many other stakeholder supporters such as ourselves who are on the development assistance side being in one place and having the conversations that need to be had. Beyond that, obviously, it's also to look at what it is that has been happening in terms of forging ahead with the implementation of the AFCFTA. Through this engagement, I think you're having the broader discussions of what needs to be done, and to me, investment is an integral part. So bringing these partners to be here to share with others what it is they're able to provide, how that can be provided, and which of these private sector people can actually engage to make sure that that actually translates into real investment coming in with the support of everybody else is important.
Data from the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development show that intra-African trade currently accounts for less than 18% of the continent's total trade, compared with almost 68% in Europe and 59% in Asia. Tariff and non-tariff barriers are to blame, even in the aviation sector. In your opinion, how can we solve the situation?
That is very true in terms of the statistics, and I think it's precisely was one of the objectives, the intended objectives of the African Continental Free Trade Area when this was being conceptualized, purely to see how they can forge ahead in terms of enhancing intra-Africa trade, but beyond that also looking at what they can do with the rest of the world collectively together, which is why the work on the value chains and how these can be ones that people work towards supporting, but in reality also making sure that the supply chain is one that is also being responded to in a way that helps across borders to be able to collectively work together and be able to trade as a country. But to get there, there's a lot that needs to be done. One of the key issues that we have heard in the last two days or so is really the issue relating to non-tariff barriers. That is an aspect that has to be addressed. I think many of the states, whether at the continental level or within the respective regional integration efforts that are being made, they've tried to address this. But I think we still have a lot of work to do, in the sense that they continue to be a situation that sees more and more non-tariff barriers coming into play. The enforcement of ensuring that these are actually removed is one that has to be looked into, and making sure that you do not allow additional ones to come on stream unless we can get to a point where these are handled. And it's a collective effort, I think, of private sector and the public sector. Public sector perhaps trying to put in place institutional mechanisms that will monitor, that will also address themselves to the removal of the non-tariff measures through conversations with the respective governments. But that is one that will also ensure that private sector are made aware that these aspects do not exist, and that they're able to actually move forward with the export efforts that are being made.
When we talk about regional integration, we also think about transport facilities. According to experts, air transport is the greatest catalyst for economic development in every country in the world, including Africa. Africa is approximately 30.4 million square kilometers in size, but accounts for only 2% of global traffic. What do you think can be done to change this paradigm and facilitate integration by air?
I think many aspects relate to this issue. On the policy side, I think governments collectively have to put in place the appropriate policies that will facilitate connection, because what we're talking about here is connectivity really, and ensuring that governments not only agree to the policies that would guide this, but at a continental level, that these the agreements that have been signed to are actually implemented. I think in many of the cases, the implementation of some of these agreements has been one that has been lacking. I think there is a consideration of certain aspects being in a space where there seem to be, it's about competition of the airlines rather than seeing how they can work together to be able to, to open up the space, linking, making all the linkages that, the transport logistics would need to facilitate the exports.
Thank you very much. You gave us a lot of data on how you think that AFCFTA can in fact be implemented. Now we'd like to know, how is the ITC helping African countries to go towards that objective of creating a single market that will be competitive with the rest of the world?
To start with, perhaps I could explain a little bit about who we are. We are an international organization of the United Nations and the World Trade Organization. Which brings together the trade and development nexus. We work with developing countries, and our key mandate is one that focuses on supporting micro, small and medium enterprises in enhancing their competitiveness, and in so doing also linking them to markets. So that is our fundamental role in terms of what we bring to the table. Why MSMEs? They constitute 90% of the economies of Africa. Our work that is undertaken in the 50 countries that we are present in is one that is purely focused on that. So we work first and foremost on ensuring that countries understand their context. In understanding their context, what I mean is we'll do the analysis, we'll be able to provide the trade intelligence that will guide them in terms of the policies or the other decisions that are needed both from the public and private sector. Secondly, we address ourselves to ensuring that we have effectively functioning institutions, trade support institutions, that will be able to accompany the process together with private sector. Third is that we also ensure that we are working with the companies themselves to ensure that we are supporting their production by addressing the various aspects that need to be addressed along the different value chains. So this is broadly what we have been doing. We do this at the country level, we do this at the regional level, where we are working with the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, as well as many other partners, to make sure that the regional agenda is one that comes to fruition. We are moving from pronouncements of a good intent, getting into the effective side. So in short, I would summarize it by saying we work alongside private sector, because they're the drivers of this process, and do the hand holding to make them get to the point where they can actually export, focusing a lot on women and youth, because we have to be inclusive in whatever we do and ensure that we're not leaving anyone behind.
Mrs. Tembo, thank you very much for answering Africa 24's English questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gents, here comes the end of this program. Please stay tuned for more news on Africa24tv.com and on the application My Africa 24.
This program was brought to you by the AFCFTA Secretariat on Africa 24.